You may now open the folders in front of you.
This circle represents the full flying range of the Vulcan. Extensive search has failed to locate any evidence of either a crash or landing.
My dear Prime Minister, 2 atomic bombs.
Thunderball, a gargantuan multi-million-dollar production shot around the world. The spectacular James Bond adventure created a frenzy upon release during Christmas 1965 as one of the most eagerly awaited films in cinema history. The story of Thunderball begins in 1952 on the North Shore of Jamaica, where Ian Fleming created the dashing secret agent 007. The first novel, Casino Royale, sold so poorly it was renamed when issued as a US paperback. Yet Fleming was always interested in taking James Bond to the movies. In spite of the lackluster performance of this 1954 television production.
Look, would you get me some chips?
Why, certainly, Mr. Bond.
By the late 50s, Bond book sales heated up. The world hungered for the suave modern hero with a taste for martinis, danger, and sex.
I mean, sex is a perfectly respectable subject as far as Shakespeare is concerned, and I don't see why it shouldn't be so far as I'm concerned.
And I think it was Fleming who was asked what sort of makes a good thriller. Give Bond the right clothes, the right background, and the right girls, and then you've got a first-class thriller.
Ian Fleming and his wealthy friend, Ivar Bryce, decided the time was right for a James Bond film. The earliest written material on Thunderball began with this man, Ernest Cuneo, a longtime friend. Over the next 8 months, Fleming worked with a young filmmaker named Kevin McClory and a screenwriter, Jack Whittingham. Fleming eventually became bored and irritated with the screenwriting process. He returned to Goldeneye, his Jamaican home, and wrote his 8th James Bond novel, basing the story on the abandoned screen treatment. In March of 1961, Kevin McClory saw an advance copy of Thunderball, the novel, and decided some of the story material used was his. McClory filed suit. Fleming could not be worried. Other more promising film deals were in the works. A Canadian producer, Harry Saltzman, took an option on the James Bond novels, and another producer, Albert Cubby Broccoli, also hunted around for the rights. The two men joined forces and approached United Artists. The producers hired Richard Maybaum to adapt Thunderball.
We had wanted to do Thunderball as the very first picture, but the rights were not available to us. They weren't clean, and our lawyers advised us not to do it. But that time we wanted to do it.
The producers tabled the project and commenced production on Dr. No.
I won't go into the legal side of it, but Kevin always maintained that he and the man who had written the script, called Jack Whittingham, owned the rights jointly with Ian Fleming, who, of course, created and owned the character, Mr. Bond. The case did get to the High Court in London. It was settled out of court.
Sean Connery became a superstar in the role of Agent 007, and Broccoli and Saltzman had him. A deal was struck in 1964.
And we made a deal with Kevin to make the picture, and Kevin was the producer.
Cubby and Kevin McClory came out to ask me to do Thunderball, and I was drained of ideas. I was very fond of Bond, but felt that I had nothing to contribute until I'd recharged batteries.
Fortunately, Terence Young, the immensely successful director of Dr. No and From Russia with Love, was available. Bond screenwriter Richard Maybaum, the master of plotting, and British playwright John Hopkins wrote the new Thunderball script.
From the time I was called on a bond to the time we started shooting was 6 months plus. As it became more successful, I had a very expert team working with me. So they knew what was required, they knew my type of designing.
It was a very complimentary team. Ken Adams' contribution is so blatant. I mean, just progressively through the films as he made them.
But the story contained a major challenge. 25% of the screen time takes place underwater.
I was working at Ivan Tors Studios in Miami. We did the Flipper TV series and other shows for Ivan Tors. And Cubby Broccoli contacted Ivan about shooting the underwater sequences for Thunderball. So I went to England, met Cubby Broccoli, and I told him of the things that we had done underwater for Ivan and other shows. And we got the job.
Well, at that time, nobody had ever done anything like this. They'd never built a set underwater. Ken breezed into the office one day and said, "Oh, we're going to do Thunderball." So I said, "You better learn to swim underwater."
While crew members became acquainted with the aqualung, the producers were facing their own unique challenge, casting. The role of Domino, the kept woman of Emilio Largo, would be the most complex and demanding of any female lead yet in a Bond film.
I hoped you'd not be so obvious.
Well, when one has little time, one sort of has to be obvious.
Hundreds of actresses vied for the role, amongst them Julie Christie, Raquel Welch, and Faye Dunaway.
They brought in many, many girls. There must have been at least 100, 150. And I tested for the leading lady, for the leading character, the one that Claudine finally ended up playing.
Possessing the perfect balance of innocence and sex appeal, former Miss France, Claudine Auger, landed the key role of Domino.
And so they said, well, we have good news and we have bad news. He said, the bad news, he says that you didn't get the role of the leading lady. The good news, he says that you're going to play the antagonist. And I said, yeah, because I think that those are the most fun roles to play.
Aren't you in the wrong room, Mr. Bond?
Not from where I'm standing.
Of course, the sex appeal of James Bond required more than two incredibly alluring women in the cast.
Behave yourself, Mr. Bond.
The test was exciting for me, and I was very nervous since I'd never actually been on a sound stage before. In another corner of the studio, I saw this very tall, handsome man, and I remember Terence Young said to me, "Darling, of course you know Sean, don't you?" Well, I'd never met Sean in my life. I was quite overawed by this.
Oh, no.
007.
The rest of the Bond team was back as well.
It was really like a big family. Every time we started a new film and the family was together, we all hugged each other, and we knew we were going to do something, you know, that was going to be enormously successful.
We shot it, I think, under schedule because of that. The technicians were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
All right, action!
Principal photography began on February the 16th, 1965, in Annay, France, coinciding with the French premiere of Goldfinger, whose pre-credit sequence had audiences worldwide cheering. So every effort was made to see that the opening of Thunderball had all the right ingredients of elegance, adventure, and, of course, gadgets. The Bell Textron rocket pack had been developed for the Army for battlefield use. The only two men qualified to fly the amazing machine were brought to France to perform the 21-second flight.
No well-dressed man should be without one.
Yes, very practical.
Pilot Bill Suter remembers being politely asked to fly without a helmet because it was felt Bond would look more debonair without headgear. Knowing the risks, the pilot refused. Fire hoses rigged beneath the Aston Martin drenched the stuntmen in this sequence. Rough work considering temperatures remained well below freezing. Of course, the crew also knew it would be taking enormous calculated risks.
We did the filming of Count Lippy's Demise at Silverstone Racing Circuit in Northampton, England. We had the BSA, Lightning it was called. Bob Simmons was driving the Ford Fairlane, and Bob was lying down virtually on the road, and we fixed the steering mechanism up for him.
He was a very nice man, Bob. I'd had him as a stuntman many years earlier on other pictures, you know. He was one of the people I insisted on having on the film. Luciano Paluzzi is riding this motorbike with a rocket, and she fires into the car, and the car has to leave the road.
Johnny Walker went to fire the rockets, told Bob when to hit the explosion in the car, worked it out in great detail. The vehicles were going really, really fast. The bike was doing over 100 miles an hour.
We did several rehearsals of the thing, and I was trying to get to go faster and faster.
The rockets were fired, big explosion, the skyline went off the road, and Bob wasn't there. So, God, where is he? We thought he was under the car. I didn't know what happened to him.
I didn't see Bob leave the car, which he should have done. And we're very cold-blooded directors. I let the thing run on till I'd got the shot. And then I ran in front of the camera and raced down the hill where, you know, and I couldn't find Bob.
Terence said, well, where the hell is he? What's wrong, Bob? Where are you? You know, everybody was really panicking. And the voice behind Terence said, how was that, Gov? Terence said, don't you ever do that again. He said, you nearly gave me a heart attack.
So, you know, he was alive. You established that.
These rare shots from the American television special, The Incredible World of James Bond, reveals just how narrow Bob Simmons' escape really was.
What the Bonds did, they stimulated my imagination. I felt the sky was the limit. I could do anything.
Ken Adams' crew faced the challenge of bringing Bond's world to the Bahamas. Everything about the film grew to larger-than-life proportions.
On Thunderball, we needed a yacht. The rear part was designed like a catamaran. The actual hydrofoil, we bought it for, I think, $10,000. They had it shipped to Miami. And then the whole conversion was done by 3M Shipyard in Miami. All my naval advisors thought it wouldn't work because the catamaran part of it was attached to the hydrofoil by two 1-inch slip bolts. And that was the only thing that held those two hulls together because they had to move independently. And then once the slip bolts were pulled out, the hydrofoil just sped away. What was amazing on all the Bonds, but it started on Thunderball when I had to design a lot of underwater craft and so on. I just designed them, and I thought nobody could ever realize these designs and that they weren't practical. And we found this expert on mini submarines in Miami, Jordan Klein, and he said, no, we can build that. And that gave me a great deal of confidence because I found in subsequent Bonds that whatever I designed, somebody in the world was able to realize these designs and make them practical.
Desperate to make a Christmas release, the back-breaking schedule required Jordan Klein and his construction crew to sleep in shifts to meet the deadline.
They should have got more recognition for the sets and for special effects and all sorts of things in the Bond films, and they really did.
On March the 22nd, 1965, 102 actors and technicians and 12.5 tons of equipment flew to Nassau. The tiny island never recovered.
Now it was grand. James Bond was now grand. I mean, it was like the biggest thing to hit the world. I mean, it was the Beatles and James Bond.
The best of the best was at our disposal. I remember our dressing rooms when we were working on the streets, the carnival scenes. We had a yacht. They rented a yacht on which we would go between takes. When we had to work on a beach, they would have tents. Champagne would be there and the best of wine. That was Terence anyway. That was his style and that was the way that things were done. So I worked on rougher pictures, but Thunderball was definitely the easiest.
Well, easy for some. Creating the effect of a full-sized Vulcan bomber which sinks to the bottom of the ocean required a little espionage by the production design staff.
The nuclear weapons, at that time, nobody really knew what they looked like. Ken and I were invited to bomb a command one night. We went down to their Holy of Holies, and the squadron leader who was showing us around said, all the questions that you've asked me, if you look, all the answers are here.
Peter Lamont used these hidden camera shots to design the nuclear weapons in Thunderball.
Anyway, we boxed everything up, and we carted it off to the Bahamas, and on a little wharf there we started to build the Vulcan.
I supplied certain equipment which came from certain people in this country who, once again, we have dealt with on a regular basis, and we were able to supply the control mechanism, bomb releases, and that type of thing.
I sat up there for about 2 or 3 weeks and I did all the dressing myself.
For some, the challenges were more than technical.
I'd been in England for so long that I was grey. When I finally got the role, Terence was, "Now, darling, you have to go and get yourself a tan. So, we're going to call you every day, and you're going to go out, and you're going to get to be an island girl." So that's what they did. They called me every morning, and I sunned myself for 2 weeks before I started to get my island girl look. What a job.
During the shooting, we had about 150 journalists who came, and for 2 weeks we were working and doing interviews at the same time. It was so pleasant to work on that picture because they already knew that they were going to have a success.
Sean Connery lived under a microscope as James Bond. With hordes of fans and reporters following his every move, Connery had to discover some way of keeping focused on his work. During the Nassau shoot, he granted only one major interview, Playboy magazine.
He obviously has a highly developed sense of, shall we say, drama.
Instead, Connery worked closely with Terence Young to make certain this Bond lived up to expectations.
I think he got the point.
Well, Sean was the easiest person I've ever worked with.
He always liked to joke and laugh, and sometimes it was a little bit off when you're sort of standing there trying to be terribly serious and he was goosing you. Or he's pulling faces when he's giving you a line, he's pulling faces, he's doing, this stuff, and you're going, oh, God.
Try to be a little less than your usual frivolous self, 007.
Sean, he was so good in what he was doing that he was easy just to be caught in his rhythm. So he just came all very natural.
But he was fun. He was fun, and he's really terrific to work with. That's Sean and I. There's our relationship right there.
What sharp little eyes you've got.
Wait till you get to my teeth.
Of course, some scenes were still a little tense.
So when I needed sharks for a villa I'd found there, which had 2 pools, I rang up Miami, and in one night fished 15 sharks, and they were craned in and put into one of the pools. Sean was very reluctant to be in the pool together with the sharks, so I designed like a corridor out of plexiglass so that the shark was behind the plexiglass and Sean was on the other side of it.
And I said, the only way the sharks can get in is if they can jump in the air like a dolphin. He said, well, how do I know sharks can't? I said, you're my word for it. He says, not good enough.
What I didn't tell Sean is that I could only get so much plexiglass, and one 4x8 sheet was missing. So there was a 4-foot gap.
And of course, underwater, you can't see anything. And I went to go underwater to do my first entrance to swim past the shark.
But as always happened, the shark went straight down the corridor and went out through the 4-foot gap.
And believe me, the shot we have in the picture, Sean Connery is not acting.
We were watching horrified from the top and told Sean to get out as quickly as possible.
And I got out of the water without, I think I was dry when I touched the side.
And I've never seen somebody leave a pool at the speed that Sean did.
I don't know whose fault it was, but it didn't happen again.
For this sequence, stuntman Bill Cummings demanded £250 extra hazard pay before he would agree to land atop a live shark. John Steers rigged up a dead shark with a trace wire for this shot of Connery exiting the pool, but getting the effect proved to be its own adventure. To set up, Steers had to drag the shark into place by hand.
So anyhow, I got in there and I started pulling this thing back. I was very dubious, and Terence says, oh, back a bit further, John, back a bit further. And I suddenly realised I was right in the middle of the pool by this time, and sharks were all around me. So Terence said, that's fine, we'll do it from there, John. And just as he said that, this dead shark leapt away from me. It went straight towards another one that swam around. And it opened its mouth, and this other shark thought the shark was going for him, and that was it. The next thing I knew, I was being pushed out of the water by these seething sharks, and the water now was blood red. All Terence was saying, turn the cameras, it's fantastic, it's fantastic. I said, get me out of here.
The only dramatic part of all this is that my wife refused to go to bed with me for 2 weeks afterwards because she said, you stink of shark, of rotten fish. She said, go and sleep somewhere else.
But the biggest, riskiest, most spectacular scene was yet to come. After weeks of rehearsals, 60 divers using more than $85,000 worth of diving equipment created the stunning underwater jihad. Director Riku Browning choreographed the action.
We would rehearse the sequences topside aboard this huge barge that we had rented, and then we would try to recreate what we rehearsed on the surface underwater. And in those days, we really didn't have underwater communication like we have today. So we used hand signals.
To film the subaquatic action, producers hired Lamar Boren, a key developer of underwater cinematography. Engineer Jordan Klein worked with special effects supervisor John Steers to create the illusion of a saltwater battleground. Terence Young and the underwater team tried to film every imaginable form of mayhem. Stuntman Frank Cousins doubled for Sean Connery for much of the sequence. To achieve this effect, a wire attached the stuntman to a speedboat on the surface. And of course, there had to be sharks. All real, and this time all very much alive.
We had to learn kind of hit and miss of how to handle them so you don't get hurt. And we found that the tiger shark was better to work with in that if you let him go, he would kind of go in a straight line. But if you had a lemon shark or a bull shark and you let them go, sometimes they just turn, like right now, they're facing you. And that's not too groovy, you know, seeing those chompers. As the guys say, the man in the gray suit's coming for you.
Divers placed wires through the shark's fins to control their movements, keeping the rest of the crew in relative safety. For the climax, the filmmakers needed more military equipment than some real-life invasions. To assemble the firepower and manpower necessary, Broccoli and Saltzman turned to Lieutenant Colonel Charles Rouchon.
Now, this tie is rather unique, but it was given to us on Thunderball by a remarkable man called Colonel Charles Rouchon, who used to get lots of gadgets for us from the American Army and Navy.
We had a Mr. Fix-It in those days, a fellow called Charlie Rouchon. He got everybody into Fort Knox and around there, and he did amazing things. And I've seen things work in high places.
Rouchon not only amassed an armada for Thunderball's climax, he also helped in securing the Skyhook Sea Rescue equipment and a few other extras.
I had got Charlie Rouchon, who was our American contact, to get me some deviant of rocket fuel, some of the stuff which they were experimenting with, and I didn't know how powerful it was. I hadn't got a clue. And I had no chance to test it because the stuff had arrived the night before. So it really was suck it and see. And I hit the TX, and I just couldn't believe what happened. I mean, the thing just disappeared in front of our eyes. I didn't know where the boat had gone to. I thought it just vaporized it. I looked up, and there was a little black pinpoint in the sky. And I said, I don't know where you guys, but the boat is coming down on top of us, and there's nowhere to go. And I looked up, and by this time you could see that it's perfectly round, this thing, and it's all bits and pieces. Very nasty mess coming down. When we got back to 30 miles back to Nassau, all the windows were out in Bay Street. We'd taken all the windows out. That's 30 miles away. It's only the fact that we were right on top of it, laying down, that the blast went right over us. Must have been the biggest explosion ever in a movie picture, ever.
After the crews returned to Pinewood Studios in May of 1965, one major, brutal sequence remained. The final fight aboard the Disco Volante, which was recreated on a soundstage.
We shot some of it in the real boat, and then we had to put the boat up in the studio on rockers and all that, and I think it was worse in the studio than it was on the boat.
Staging fierce combat on a runaway hydrofoil took weeks of careful planning by Terence Young, editor Peter Hunt, and a stunt team.
All right, here we go now. Action!
Terence Young staged his action for maximum impact. Peter Hunt introduced a new style of editing, breaking all the rules. With Ted Moore's Technicolor cinematography and John Barry's amazing musical score, all the ingredients fell into place, making Thunderball into a film that still thrills viewers.
I'm glad I killed him.
You're glad.
Got it! Bloody good. No, I know, but it's all right. You all right, Sean? Bloody good. Bloody good.
Thunderball opened on December the 21st, 1965, smashing box office records.
Here comes the biggest Bond of all. Thunderball.
James Bond mania hit a fever pitch. 30 years later, Thunderball still amazes and thrills viewers. The film's remarkable achievements transformed James Bond into more than a popular fictional hero. He became and remains a phenomenon. Begins here at a house in Jamaica named Goldeneye, January 1952. A British journalist prepares for his first marriage at the age of 43. To calm his nerves, he creates a fictional alter ego named James Bond. It proves to be the birth of one of the 20th century's most remarkable heroes.
I think you got the point.
The 60s James Bond craze reaches its height with the Thunderball phenomenon.
He always runs while others walk. He acts while other men just talk. So he strikes like thunderbolt.
Everyone knows James Bond, but how by the release of Thunderball in 1965 does Agent 007 become the icon of a generation, the epitome of masculine grace and ruthless sexuality?
Funny you should say that.
In 1965, Jack Haley Jr. prepares this brief film biography of the world's most famous secret agent, as part of the American television special, The Incredible World of James Bond.
the Highlands of Scotland. This, Ian Fleming tells us, is where James Bond was born. And in the novels, Fleming gives us only a few more glimpses into his hero's fictional past. In the tiny village of Glencoe, young Bond spent part of his early childhood, growing up in a region known for its natural beauty and tranquility. At the age of 11, Bond, the son of a traveling businessman, was orphaned, accounting for some of his later self-reliance and independence. Enrolled in Eton by a devoted maiden aunt, Bond was expelled in his first year for showing precocious interest in a servant girl. But according to Fleming, he finally graduated from Fettes College in Edinburgh, where he distinguished himself only in boxing and judo. World War II further shaped young Bond's character. At 17, he lied about his age and saw action as a commando and intelligence agent. At war's end, Bond returned to England, Fleming tells us, but remained as an agent in Her Majesty's Secret Service. Off King's Road, in middle-class Chelsea, he took a small flat, and on the surface became as conventional and as anonymous as his neighbors. An innocent-looking business concern in London is the facade concealing the government agency that now employs James Bond's talents. This is the nerve center of Bond's incredible world, the Secret Service branch of the Ministry of Defense, as conceived by Ian Fleming's elaborate imagination.
In 1964, Fleming talks briefly about the James Bond novels.
When I started to write these books, I wanted to find a really flat, quiet name. And one of my Bibles out here is James Bond's Birds of the West Indies. And I thought, well, now, James Bond, now that's a pretty quiet name. And so I simply stole it and used it. All history is sex and violence, and I think it's ridiculous to go on writing thrillers in the old way when life has come so fast past us. People do connect me with James Bond simply because I happen to like scrambled eggs and short-sleeved shirts and some of the things that James Bond does, but I certainly haven't got his guts nor his very lively appetites.
To shepherd Bond's transformation to the screen, producers Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman hired director Terence Young. Young was born in Shanghai, and by the time he directs the first Bond film, Dr. No, he holds a reputation as a man of the world.
Of course, I loved Terence Young. He was a wonderful, erudite, witty, sophisticated, handsome chap, who, by the way, put a lot of polish on Sean Connery.
Terence, I think, could be termed, in my opinion, a gentleman, a very sophisticated man, a very knowledgeable man, a delightful man. In fact, I think he probably was more James Bond than anyone else.
I think Terence was Bond, actually. I really do. And Terence actually lived the part.
Terence knew exactly what he wanted. He was James Bond.
Director Young makes certain the elegance and sophistication of Fleming's writing becomes inseparable from James Bond's on-screen persona, a trademark which survives even when Guy Hamilton takes over the director's chair on Goldfinger.
Have a little more of this rather disappointing brandy. What's the matter with it?
I'd say it was a 30-year-old fiend indifferently blended, sir. With an overdose of Bombois.
Breakfast for one at 9, please. Green figs, yogurt, coffee, very black. Thank you. Beluga caviar, Dom Perignon 55.
Who needs it?
My dear girl, there are some things that just aren't done. Such as drinking Dom Perignon 53 above a temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit.
No!
It's a Dom Perignon 55. It would be a pity to break it.
I prefer the 53 myself. Mint julep, sour mash, but not too sweet, please.
Can I do something for you, Mr. Bond?
Just a drink. A martini, shaken, not stirred.
One medium dry vodka martini. Mixed like you said, sir, and not stirred.
Thank you.
A medium dry martini, lemon peel, shaken, not stirred.
Vodka?
Of course.
He's not exactly Ian Fleming's
James Bond, his original choice for James Bond was David Niven. He thought he was sophisticated, English gentleman, university and all that kind of stuff. Sean, nothing like that at all. He's a rough, tough Scotch football player, was Sean Connery. And our attributing to him all these gentlemanly qualifications and stuff was the cream of the jest. It made it funny. And it also made him instantly acceptable.
Of course, James Bond becomes far more than just acceptable. People become fanatics. By the mid-60s, the Bond novels sell at rates the publishing industry never imagines possible. In 1965, over 6,782,000 Bond paperbacks are sold, in Great Britain alone. The novel, Thunderball, proved to be a huge bestseller, perennially republished in many languages and editions. Bond fans even snap up the parody, Matzo Ball. Every publisher has a book to tie in to the James Bond juggernaut. With the smashing success of Goldfinger, producers know everyone wants a piece of James Bond.
I think the diversity of the popularity of James Bond is really shown in the fact that both Playboy had a James Bond cover, as did the household magazine in America, Life magazine, and Popular Science, for that matter. So you've gone all the way from the men's magazines to the science magazines to the coffee table magazines.
And beyond. In the fall and winter of 1965, Thunderball is on the cover of every magazine imaginable, and some that stretch the imagination.
The publicity angle, because you had been in a Bond film and being English, also that had quite an impact. And also the fact that the scene in the shower room where I was supposedly naked, that got a bit of press as well.
I mean, all the Bond girls had an incredible amount of publicity covers. Just what happened after these plane loads of journalists came. I mean, every cover in Europe, every magazine. I mean, I have tons of things that are in drawers that one day I say, well, I'm going to put them in an album, but it's so much, it's overwhelming.
We ended up with Cosmopolitan, Life, Look, I mean, and after a while it was part of the job.
Magazine covers and specialty publications like these brochures and programs help sell the movie to the public, but that is only part of a process which begins months earlier during the filming. From publicity shoots, renowned illustrators like Bob McGuinness and Frank McCarthy sketch ideas for potential ad campaigns, working closely with United Artists art director Don Smolin.
The artists involved were very, very dear old friends of mine from the Illustrator Society in New York, because we were all members of the Illustrator Society. Frank McCarthy and Bob McGuinness.
Thunderball begins a tradition with Bond advertising of sprawling works of art crammed with action and oozing sexuality.
Bob had this unusual feeling for painting women. And since women were such a basic part of the Bond campaigns, we decided that we had to use two artists. Frank was more of an adventurer. Frank was more rough and ready. Frank today is considered one of the great Western painters. And so Frank and Bob collaborated, I think, for the very first time on Thunderball.
The artists used their imaginations to create concept sketches like this one by Bob McGuinness. Some of these sketches are transformed into final artwork. Thunderball's tri-panelled campaign produces many varieties of design, including these rarely seen McGuinness paintings. Foreign distribution offices choose their own ways to market Thunderball. John Barry's dynamic and provocative scores of earlier Bond films send record sales through the roof. The title, Thunderball, does not seem to lend itself to a song. John Barry and Leslie Brookus compose an alternate title song, Mr. Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang, and call in Shirley Bassey to sing it.
He's tall and he's dark, and like a shark, he looks for trouble.
quickly, producers rename a location in the film to match the new title track.
Mr. Kiss, Kiss, Bam, Bam.
Soon, some begin to worry about a title song which doesn't have the title in it. Eventually, Dionne Warwick sings the final version after it is agreed the vocals will not start until after the word Thunderball appears in the credits.
He's tall and he's dark, and like a shark, he looks for trouble. That's why.
With only weeks to go until release, plans for Kiss Kiss Bang Bang are scrapped. John Barry works with Don Black, bringing in Tom Jones to sing Thunderball.
He strikes like thunderball.
Both the soundtrack and the song make the charts and are constantly re-recorded.
The meaning of success.
Back in 1965, dozens of groups from trios to orchestras put out 007 cover albums, and they all sold, some of them very well.
Amazingly enough, considering the popularity of the James Bond scores, almost no music from the second half of Thunderball makes it onto the soundtrack album.
What happened was the film was set to come out in December, and the record retailers wanted to get the Thunderball soundtrack in their stores for the Christmas season. But there was a big problem. John Barry was still scoring Thunderball, so the album really has no music from the film's second half. It did come out in the stores in November, but it was 30 years later before the full score was finally available to record buyers.
Christmas, 1965. The world goes crazy over James Bond.
Every conceivable product was looked at as a potential James Bond product. Everything from vodka to clothing to men's cologne and aftershave to men's underwear and trench coats.
An ordinary pen, isn't it? It writes like one, but it projects messages over 20 feet. Ingenious. And should you find yourself trapped, you merely whistle for help. Then, by placing ammunition in that slot... Careful, Bond! This is vapor paper. Writing messages to our agents. Drop it in water. Astonishing. By American character.
By the time Thunderball came out, there was already a product on the market for boys that was a phenomenal success. It was the G.I. Joe doll. So, of course, when Thunderball came out, there had to be a James Bond doll.
In the United States, Gilbert Toys sells miniature figures of all the Bond characters.
I've been looking at this toy for the last 10 minutes. I wonder who modeled this.
There are James Bond magic sets, James Bond watches, and a variety of other toys, puzzles, and games. Children go off to school with a James Bond lunchbox, wear James Bond shoes, sleep on a James Bond pillowcase, and dry off with a James Bond towel. There are even 2 sets of trading cards sold, one for each side of the Atlantic.
007 action figure was produced by Gilbert, but Gilbert also produced another item. It was the James Bond road race set. It came out in December 1965, the same time as Thunderball was released. Gilbert produced many, many copies of this road race set, and because it was a new type of manufacturing, they had to go overseas to have it manufactured. And Sears pre-bought several thousands of copies of these road race sets and put them in their catalog for the Christmas market. Unfortunately, most of the road race sets had flaws in them. They didn't work quite right, so Sears sent them back to the manufacturer, and in fact put Gilbert, who was the oldest American toy manufacturer at that time, out of business.
When your mother rang and told me it was your birthday today, I thought, well, what can I give old Chris? As your godfather, it's up to me to give you something pretty special, isn't it, eh? And then I had this brainwave. I'll take you to watch a scene from the new James Bond picture actually being filmed.
Ford Motors, which provides many of the cars, produces this tongue-in-cheek film.
Oh, those photos are from this Thunderball film. They're what they call stills. See, in the film, those nice ladies, they're James Bond's chums. See that empty tray in the boot? Well, into that they put a polythene bag that's filled with wads of felt that they've soaked in petrol. Then they run wires into it through a battery and connect the wires to a switch on the dashboard. Then, the moment the driver turns that switch, a spark flashes between the wires and, whoa, up it all goes.
Of course, armed with this knowledge, the inevitable occurs. Woolper Productions takes a more straightforward approach with The Incredible World of James Bond, which airs on November the 26th, 4 weeks before the film reaches theatres. The special gives an overview of Ian Fleming's creation.
Here at GoldenEye is Jamaican Retreat. Ian Fleming wrote the 12 Bond novels. Then, in 1964, at the age of 56, he died. To his admirers, the loss is somehow personal, for Fleming was an original, the conjurer of unique and extravagant tales that, once read, still bring a smile of admiration in memory.
This isn't a personal vendetta, 007. It's an assignment like any other. But if you can't treat it as such coldly and objectively, 008 can replace it.
The show captivates viewers, becoming the highest-rated program for the week.
James Bond is in operation. And what an operator he is in Ian Fleming's Thunderball.
For movie lovers, the Thunderball trailer plays in almost every theatre in America. In Manhattan, the Paramount Theatre builds a special booth a month before opening to show the trailer to fans who gather on the street. The film opens on December the 21st, 1965, to great reviews and record crowds. This phenomenal response only encourages the studio advertising department to be bolder with their promotional gambits. United Artists hires one of the Bell rocket pack pilots to fly in Manhattan.
We had him jump off the marquee of the Paramount Theater, 1501 Broadway. And the police arrested everybody because we hadn't gotten a license to do this. So all of our department was arrested that night.
Many theatres remain open 24 hours a day to accommodate the crowds, and still fans wait hours to see the film. In England, the film proves too big for one premiere.
My first premiere was Thunderball. I think the thing about the premieres is that the crowds, they really are. It is quite fantastic.
It was just great fun. I met Tom Jones there. He was singing the theme song. I saw it in the end about 16 times because I went to various premieres. And I suppose I was vain. I looked at the screen and thought, yeah, you look all right, girl.
Molly Peters and Martine Beswick attend the Brazil Film Festival in Rio, where they meet some ardent fans.
And then going to a premiere in the evening, they literally attacked the car. I mean, and rocked the car and almost broke the windows and screaming, Bond girl, and it was like really, really scary. I mean, that was when I got, it suddenly dawned on me what it was all about. I mean, before I was just doing it, you know, but that scared me.
Going to the premieres there, because I was blonde and I had a tan and I wore a white dress, people wanted to touch me. I found that very strange, and I think it was because of the different colouring. I don't know. Or perhaps in their eyes I'd become something unattainable to them. I don't know what it was, but I found it very difficult to cope with.
Sean Connery attends none of the Thunderball premieres. He learns his lesson after the Paris opening of Goldfinger, where a female fan leaps into the DB5 as Connery drives it down the Champs-Élysées.
But in England it was very civilised. So You know, it was a whole different thing, and people did, you know, they loved the Bond movies, and they loved them many, you know, signing things and signing autographs and signing pictures, and I mean, they were cool. You know, it was a whole different thing.
Some English fans do take the film rather seriously.
To see that full, you know, widescreen effect for the first time with a Bond film, it really was a mind-blowing experience. And as a schoolboy, it also was sort of doubly mind-blowing because I got the opportunity to meet with Molly Peters at a special screening of the film with a couple of other school friends, and we all got presented a photograph signed by Sean Connery and by her. Had no idea that I was going to be doing the sorts of things I'm doing now and running the fan club as a living. And, you know, 20 odd years later, literally holding events at Pinewood Studios and having Molly Peters come along as our guest.
Thunderball mania grips the public with such fervour, some have a hard time separating fact from fiction.
So I was sitting in the office one day and the phone went, and a voice said, oh, he was Captain so-and-so from the Royal Engineers, and did I know anything about Thunderball? So I said, yes, I did, I was concerned with it. So he said, well, I wonder if you could tell me, he said, you know, we're very interested in the underwater breathing apparatus, especially the miniaturised breathing apparatus. So he said, can you tell me how long the air lasted? So I said, yeah, I can tell you exactly. So he said, well, how long? So I said, as long as you can hold your breath. And I can imagine this poor fella going white. And he said, what do you mean? He said, Bond was underwater for 3 or 4 minutes. So I said, yes, but if you look at it carefully, that's the skill of the editor. I said, it didn't work, believe me. He said, thank you very much, and the phone went dead.
John Steers' outstanding special effects received particular recognition.
This is what I got for Thunderball. There's only 2 Oscars been awarded up to now for Bond pictures. One, Norman Wanstall, the sound man, got it the year before, and I got this one for Thunderball. I think it's the last one that you'll see with one name on a special effects Oscar. I didn't know I was even in for an Academy Award. I'd had a call from the air cargo people at Heathrow Airport if I go over and collect a package, which I did. It's a wet and windy day. I went over there, and of course it was this little guy, and I had to pay import duty on him too.
Thunderball isn't just a hit in 1965. It has numerous successful re-releases.
Now, the biggest Bond sale ever. James Bond is back. In front. And all over the place. James Bond in the giant size. Thunderball and From Russia with Love.
My orders are to kill you and deliver the Lecter.
More thrills per minute. More girls per moment.
The things I do for England.
More adventure.
Take a look. You should remember him. This man kills for pleasure.
More excitement. More everything.
Well, I'll tell you something, Goltoni. You're one of the most beautiful girls I've ever seen.
I think my mouth is too big.
No, it's the right size. For me, that is.
Two Bonds for the price of one. In the biggest Bond sale ever. Buy one Bond, get one free. They're all back to give James everything he missed the first time around.
You're trapped, Mr. Bond. You cannot escape.
Can one motion picture possibly contain this much adventure?
this much danger? Can one motion picture possibly contain all this? No. It takes two, and not just any two. It takes the two biggest Bonds of all. Thunderball and You Only Live Twice, now on the same program.
Thunderball premieres on US television in September 1974, drawing millions of viewers.
For the first time on television, Thunderball. James Bond is Agent 007. Bond takes his work very seriously.
Things I do for England.
Sean Connery is James Bond. 007 is back in Thunderball.
For the next 30 years, the film lives on, revered by an army of devoted fans who publish articles detailing every aspect of Ian Fleming's sweeping epic adventure.
In 1990, the fan club organised a special screening, 25th anniversary screening of Thunderball at the National Film Theatre in London. And we were very lucky to get Terence Young, the director, to come along, and Molly Peters.
The screening proves to be a great success, allowing many of the film's original participants to see each other for the first time in decades.
He always runs while others walk.
Thunderball continues to entertain new generations of moviegoers. The film has outlived many who brought it to the screen. They leave a legacy of adventure.
And now you are caught.
Showmanship. Larger-than-life storytelling, wild imagination, and a remarkable talent for creating pure entertainment. Ian Fleming created James Bond. But it took hundreds of talented and resourceful professionals and millions of dedicated fans to turn 007 into a phenomenon.
His needs are more, so he gives less. They call him the winner who takes all, and he strikes like thunderbolt. Are all gone. His fight goes on and on and on. But he thinks that the fight is worth it all. So he strikes like thunder.
James Bond.
For many Bond fans and film historians, Goldfinger is the 007 movie that had it all. A high-octane cocktail of action, lust, greed, and one of the world's greatest villains.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
The seventh 007 novel was published in England and America in 1959. Fleming got the idea for Goldfinger during an April 1956 stay at Enton Hall, a health spa in central England, where he met a gold broker who educated him on the trade in the world's most coveted metal. 3 years after the publication of Goldfinger came the surprise success of Dr. No, and later, From Russia with Love.
When we did Dr. No, I remember we all had very limited resources. The film was, I think, $900,000.
Producers Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman set a budget of $3 million for Goldfinger. To bring Bond number 3 in on time, the producers selected a seasoned pro, Guy Hamilton.
Guy was always going to be a director of Bond sooner or later. Then Guy came in and did that one. Some people think that's the best of all the Bonds.
Hamilton had something else, a relationship with the film's star, Sean Connery.
I'd known Sean long before he made Bonds. We had a little club called the Buxton that we used to meet each other. Goldfinger was a bit of a challenge because I began to sense that Bond was becoming a Superman and using the things that worked so wonderfully well in the 2 previous films. It was then not too difficult to have a target and know what we were trying to do.
Once again at the typewriter was Dr. No and From Russia with Love screenwriter Richard Maybaum, collaborating with Oscar-winning British screenwriter Paul Dane.
In Goldfinger, we decided to have a little mini-adventure at the start of it, which had nothing to do then with the story that followed.
It seemed to me that if we could do the pre-credit sequence, which is a wonderful piece of nonsense, I mean, where you can go swimming with a seagull on top of your head and you can unzip your suit and have a white tuxedo underneath. If that makes you laugh, let's all now, after the credit titles, go for a great big ride and have fun.
The guy that was originally cast to do it in his spare time was a cat burglar, so which was all right, but unfortunately he was caught in the act the day before he had to shoot the scene. I got the part merely on the fact that I had, according to the makeup guy, high cheekbones, and I could be made up to look like a Mexican more than anybody else. They said, right, well, you're doing the fight. And I said, oh, what fight? As the fire hits the water, the flash bulbs go, the UV lamp comes on, and the steam comes out. Well, the force of the steam, the hose pipe wrapped itself around my leg, gave me a sort of a second-degree burn. Everybody thought it was down to my acting. See, but it wasn't. It was down to sheer pain, actually.
Other actors had their own challenges to face.
At the rehearsals, I was working at a desk and Bond comes in, and I got up to greet him. And Guy said, no, you don't take any notice of this man, you don't like him. And I thought, well, but this is Bond, this is James Bond, and I'm just an ordinary civil servant. I must admire him like everybody else does. And he says, no, of course you don't. He doesn't treat your gadgets with any respect at all.
Morning, Q.
Morning, 007. This way, please.
We are busy this morning.
But there is one gadget the whole world comes to respect.
I was a sports car freak in those days, so I got rid of a lot of my inhibitions when it came to redesigning the Aston Martin.
When we came to do Goldfinger, there was a debate on what car to use, whether it should be the Bentley.
Where's my Bentley?
Oh, it's had its day, I'm afraid.
But it's never let me down.
M's orders, 007. You'll be using this Aston Martin DB5 with modifications.
I thought it was an elegant-looking car, and I remember in Switzerland driving it up and down there, impressed a lot of people. And but I think that its setting in the story and in the film gave it a more unique quality than the car actually possessed.
The management of Aston Martins were very, very sceptical about us. And they said, well, what do you want to do with the car? I told them briefly, and they said, well, you won't do it. You won't get any more equipment in this car. It's absolutely loaded as it is. So I said, just give me a break. Let me do it. I'll prove you I can do it.
Aston Martin executives loaned the Goldfinger team the development prototype, DP216-1, destined to become a legend.
The first thing we're going to do, we're going to make a hole in the roof for the ejector seat. And I said, I will make the first hole, and I can remember it now, putting a hole through this lovely Aston Martin, my pride and joy.
Back in those days, we didn't have the electronic devices that we have nowadays, where we could have done things, made things work electronically now. In the old days, we had to do it by pneumatics, didn't we?
Obviously, couldn't go around with the real machine guns in the car, but for distant shots, we had the gas guns operating.
The rear lights that dropped down and the oil slick that came out of it was done for real, funnily enough, with a big container in the back of the car. To get the tank in there, the bulletproof shield had to be taken out and then, of course, put back after that shot for the bullet effect. So there was never a sort of a dull moment.
I was having a lot of trouble with parking tickets in London around that time, so my ambition was to have a revolving number plate, you know. So that was my contribution to the supercar.
The actual tyre slashing apparatus we didn't do on the car as such. All that touching was done actually in the studios. I built a rig on rails, built the sides of the car in fiberglass, both the Aston Martin and the Mustang.
Double blowout. I've never seen one of these before.
And what about the DB5's pièce de résistance?
I went home and I got a telephone call saying, would I go back to the studios next day? And I thought, oh, good, I got an extra bit in the film. And when I got there, they gave me this bit about the ejector seat.
If you take the top off, you'll find a little red button. Whatever you do, don't touch it.
Now, why not?
Because you'll release this section of the roof and engage and fire the passenger ejector seat. Whoosh.
Ejector seat? You're joking.
And, of course, it gave me the chance of producing, I suppose, one of the most famous lines.
I never joke about my work, 007.
The chassis wouldn't have taken a proper ejector seat, and the guy next, the driver, would have got burnt anyhow. So I used compressed air on that and a lightweight dummy.
The whole thing works. I mean, it's just, it's a dream. It's your dream. Wouldn't it be fun to have a car like that?
All this gadgetry was created and installed in just 6 weeks. Other equipment was built into the car, but never used in the finished film, like front and rear overriders, good for ramming enemy vehicles. Bond's secret arsenal also included a weapons tray located underneath the driver's seat, a nail chamber that could spit out nasty triple-spike clusters, and a radio telephone hidden inside the driver's door paneling.
What's really amusing, actually, is that there must be 50 around the world claiming to be the one, and people keep paying to see it.
Even Bond's Aston Martin proved no match for the movie's sublimely evil villain, Auric Goldfinger.
Oh, you're looking, Mr. Bond, at an industrial laser beam which emits a new and extraordinary light, not to be found in nature. Natural light, you see, being multicolored, widens and weakens as it travels from the source. Laser light, being of one color, never widens, never weakens. It can
project a spot on the moon, or at closer range, cut through solid metal. I will show you.
Gert Frobe, I'd seen him, or Cubby had seen him and showed him to me in a German film where he was playing a sort of child molester, and he was absolutely wonderful. Yes, he's the perfect Goldfinger. Does he speak English? Yeah, I've spoken to his agent, he speaks English. Gert Frobe arrived day one on the set. How do you do? I'm very happy to meet you. That was all right. Then I talked to him and I realized he didn't speak a word of English.
The very first scene I shot on the balcony with Gert. And Gert had to start the scene. And he said, Operation Once Landstorm will housing wirklich immer mehr haben. I thought, oh my God, what was that? But his mouth stopped. So I thought, well, okay, I'll say my line.
I always remember Gert Frober, who was a dear sweet man. You know nothing, Mr. Bond. You know nothing.
Cubby and Harry, when they saw the first rushes, went bananas. They said, you can't understand a thing. I said, don't worry, because we're now going to dub him later.
Hamilton instructed Frobe to speak quickly, which aided actor Michael Collins, who provided the voice for Auric Goldfinger.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Guy knew exactly what he wanted and how he wanted it. He's one of those kind of people. Very, very contained director. Very, very cool. He's very much get in there and do it or else.
Hamilton definitely wanted Honor Blackman for the female lead, Pussy Galore.
There was hardly anybody else about that was as right for it as me, because at that point I was having a huge success in the Avengers, and I was coming to the end of my 2-year stint. So since the character demanded a knowledge of judo, and I was a hot property at that point, it seemed dead right that I should play it.
And there was no question of chemistry between Goldfinger's two stars.
I mean, he is, I think without doubt, the sexiest man I've ever met. He has a natural authority, charisma. He's very virile.
What would it take for you to see things my way?
A lot more than you've got.
How do you know?
I don't want to know.
Isn't it customary to grant a condemned man his last request?
You've asked for this.
It was very funny when we did the fight in it, so-called fight, because I had been used to doing judo in the studio on the cement. So they had banks and banks of straw and all sorts of things, and they said, will that be all right? Can you land on, will you be safe? And all. I mean, it was luxury for me, because I'd had such a terrible time in the studio with the cement floor, you know. So we had quite a lot of fun in The Hague, because we had to lie about for quite a long time.
Casting Oddjob proved to be no challenge at all.
I was watching one Saturday afternoon, there used to be wrestling, and there was Oddjob on television. Harold Zakata came on, and everybody booed, and there was Oddjob. And Harold Zakata had been a serious athlete, had been the first Hawaiian to get a silver medal at the Olympics. Harold was a monumentally strong but very genuine and gentle guy. And he gave me that chop behind the neck at the fridge. He put me on the floor. He wasn't quite used to the cinema technique of taking it to the wire and then stopping, you know. And some days I think I still have it from then. He was a joy to work with, and a very brave man, because in Fort Knox, when those fireworks go off at the end, he got badly burnt, and he was hanging on there, and I didn't say cut because all the sparks were flying everywhere, and it looked good to me. Till finally a Harold thing, and then he'd really burnt his hands, but Guy, you didn't say cut, so I just hung on in there.
Rounding out Goldfinger's villains was Gish, the man with the nuclear key.
We're trapped. The bomb. I take the fuse out.
I was going to be in a stage play in London, and my agent suddenly said to me, by the way, I got you out of that play. I said, what do you mean you got me out? I was in a lot of trouble getting in. He said, I got you a part in the next James Bond film, Goldfinger, instead. I said, oh, that's fair enough.
Don't be a fool. You can be a hero. I'm not.
I was thrown over the railings, and there were some cardboard boxes and mattresses and things that I landed on the other side. But the actual fall was about 40-foot fall, I think. That was done by Bob Simmons.
Mellinger was also armed with a camera, which attracted Harry Saltzman's attention.
I was filming, which I shouldn't have done, I suppose. And I said to him, to make a joke of it, I said, I'm going to release mine before yours. And he wasn't very amused.
Although in Goldfinger for less than 5 minutes, Shirley Eaton made an unforgettable impression with audiences around the world.
It was a nice sensation, being painted all over with this fine brush.
On Pinewood's D stage, makeup artists gilded Shirley Eaton.
I was nervous and happy at the same time, and every now and again somebody would come in and pop their head round the door, see how's she getting on, how's she getting on.
To avoid problems of skin suffocation, there was a doctor on the set throughout this sequence.
Guy Hamilton was extremely kind, and we got the shots done during one morning, which was really quite fast.
This is my bank. The gold depository at Fort Knox, gentlemen.
Mr. Big, somebody who wants all the gold in the world and is prepared to get some gangsters and gas everybody. I mean, if you believe that, monkeys can fly. So you've got to take it with a wonderful pinch of salt.
The star of Goldfinger in terms of settings was supposed to be Fort Knox. We had a friend of Cubby Broccoli, who was called Colonel Rouchon, who had great influence with the American authorities. So I was whisked off to Kentucky and was allowed to fly over Fort Knox and to look at it from the outside, but I wasn't allowed to go anywhere really near it because it was so protected, and there were sort of loudspeakers all over the place saying, "You are now trespassing, don't approach any," and there were also people with machine guns.
At that time, it was discussed that perhaps Fort Knox would be in Portugal, but we eventually put it on the back lot at Pinewood. Suddenly bulldozers started to appear, they started bulldozing roads, laying concrete, and I thought, oh my God.
Originally, the final battle was to take place at the gates of the gold depository, but Cubby Broccoli insisted that the villain enter the world's most secure building. Richard Maybaum and Ken Adam agreed. Others argued that no one knew what the inside of Fort Knox looked like.
I suppose that it's their underground vaults, and it's just bars of gold that go on trolleys, or rather like the Bank of England.
Peter Lamont's realistic blueprints were not enough for Broccoli. He declared, "I want to see a cathedral of gold."
And from there, Ken, designed his huge set with the elevator that covered a stage, and we made these huge heaps of gold.
And interestingly enough, we did get a letter from the controller, or whatever she was, the lady who ran Fort Knox, and complimenting our art director on his imagination, because very few people have ever seen the interior of Fort Knox.
Ken Adams's vision didn't stop at recreating Fort Knox. Another rich cinematic highlight is Goldfinger's rumpus room, where he entertains business associates.
They closed up the fire.
The Laser Room, the site of the most famous near-castration in screen history. Built on Pinewood's E stage, Sean Connery spent a very uncomfortable 3 days here in March 1964.
Well, it didn't surprise me because he took quite a pleasure in finding ways to make it difficult for me.
They brought a real laser in, which looked great, a very pencil-thin line. As soon as you turn all the studio lights on, it disappeared. So suddenly we're faced with John Steers made up this fake one, and we optically put the stuff on afterwards.
We had to pre-cut the area which was going to melt, then very carefully fill the whole lot in with solder, and then, of course, make the top finish again to look like gold. I was underneath that thing, that table, the gun, which was a acetylene that was cutting the channel. Somebody had to be under there, of course, in case the confounded thing went wrong at the last minute, and it didn't stop when it should.
Good night, Mr. Bond.
It came awful close, didn't it? It came awful close.
Goldfinger's shoot called for locations in 3 countries. The first scenes actually shot were in Miami at the Fontainebleau Hotel on January the 20th through the 24th, 1964. A pared-down crew shot actor Cease Linder poolside at the hotel.
I thought I'd find you in good hands.
To shoot coverage of Goldfinger's card scam, Hamilton used Michael Bosson doubling for Gert Frobe and Ignacio Almagro doubling for Connery. The Miami shoot also included the car-crushing sequence.
When we destroyed a brand new Lincoln Continental being crushed, the whole unit was speechless, all of us, because it was like part of ourselves being destroyed. I never forget it.
In April, filmmakers recreated the Fontainebleau pool area on Pinewood's D stage to complete the scene. Ian Fleming visited the set during filming of this sequence. Little more than a month before Goldfinger was released and Bond mania kicked into high gear, Bond's creator passed away August the 12th, 1964. Filmmakers shot Bond trailing Goldfinger in Switzerland's Furka Pass, but used Black Park, a British recreation area just outside Pinewood, for the night chase scenes. For 9 days in May, the Goldfinger unit took over the world-class Stoke Poges golf course, a normally tranquil set of links located just minutes from Pinewood Studios. Here, Connery's 3-decade love affair with the game of golf began. In August, the filmmakers raced to complete a key sequence, the aerial assault on Fort Knox.
The Bonds annually seem to open in, I've forgotten, was September the 15th or something, and whether we were finished or not was immaterial. Time is running very, very short, and 3 of us went over to Kentucky. Cubby Broccoli, Ted Moore, the cameraman, myself. Right next door to Fort Knox, there is an army base. And Ted and I flew around, zooming on whatever these people were doing. We didn't tell them we were coming, we just did it. We got a squad, a sergeant, and we ran these soldiers round, and I set them up in all the places I could remember. And I said, now what you do is, when I blow the whistle once, you all look up there. When I blow the whistle twice, you all fall down dead. And they thought this was the silliest thing that they had ever been asked to do in their born days. But we said, you know, you're all going to get $10 and a beer, for $10 and a beer. But by now we're opening in 3 weeks' time, practically. Extra people were engaged for the dubbing, for the music laying, the tracks and everything.
John Barry scored scenes fresh from the cutting room, producing incredible work in record time. In fact, there was only one last-minute change. Harry Saltzman decided the bomb countdown needed to end not with 3 seconds remaining as scripted, but at 007. The change gave the film one of its biggest laughs.
What kept you?
Guy Hamilton's tongue-in-cheek, high-thrills directorial style helped make Goldfinger a spectacular success, changing all action-adventure films that followed. His approach was simple.
We're going to take you to wonderful places. We're going to show you beautiful girls. We're going to have some suspense. We're going to have some laughs. But let's enjoy.
The huge international success of Goldfinger was due to innovative filmmakers and hundreds of tremendously talented technicians who pooled their skills, knowledge, and sense of adventure to create a film which continues to thrill and entertain generations of filmgoers.
gunning for trouble. The world's wiliest, toughest gentleman agent with a license to kill. 007. It spells Bond. He's the idol of every woman. Sean Connery in Ian Fleming's
Goldfinger.
It's January 1964, and James Bond has become one of the most popular characters in motion picture history. Producers Albert Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman have one goal: to create the biggest Bond yet. Ultimately, they create something more.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
The film's marketing campaign, orchestrated by ace publicist Tom Carlyle, is well underway when cameras roll in Miami. Reporters and paparazzi are invited onto the set for a golden photo shoot, where they capture one of the decade's most memorable erotic images. Before long, Goldfinger is on the covers of magazines throughout the world. The main focus of Goldfinger's marketing campaign is Sean Connery, now an international star. Some candid photos are hastily staged to emphasize Connery's appeal to female fans. This very private man rapidly becomes sought out by reporters around the globe. To relieve the burden, United Artists conducts an interview which is sent to radio stations across America.
This has all the flavors and ingredients of equally good, successful, entertaining film. Of the same stature as the other two. We've also got a marvelous actor, German actor, Gert Frober, playing Goldfinger. And it'll have all the dash. It might be slightly longer, actually, with all the materials and things we've got into it. We've also got to do a little bit of damage at Fort Knox, you know, so it gives you a sort of sneaking suspicion as to what the size of the film is. It's the biggest of the three. All the build-up is to rob Fort Knox, but the twist is that the person who instigates the whole thing doesn't want to rob it. So you figure that one out.
Beautiful place Goldfinger has here.
This is a different story, and takes place a great deal in America itself, you know, in Kentucky and Miami, all around. They're all sort of different facets of the same sort of theme, with, you know, slight sort of variation. And there's a different director this time. Guy Hamilton's directing and not Terence Young.
This scene marks the first time a laser is used in the plot of a motion picture.
All I know is that it's a ray that they punch up that can nick a hole in steel, that it can cut through metal and what have you. And this character used it for cutting gold and has an idea of dissecting me with it.
Connery shares the media spotlight with Honor Blackman.
The mayhem in Goldfinger isn't all male. Sultry co-star Honor Blackman and Sean rehearse their judo for a bouncy scene that'll pit the girls against the boys.
This rare promotional film is shown on American television in mid-1964.
Score, boys 1, girls nothing. The score tied at 1-1. They flip for one another. Before the scene is shot, Sean and Honor get together to run through some other action for Goldfinger, this time with the emphasis on togetherness. In the film, Honor plays the personal pilot of millionaire Auric Goldfinger. She crash lands in the lap of Agent 007. Kissing and clobbering are what have made James Bond a box office favorite around the globe. Put the two together, wrap up rehearsals, and you're ready to shoot a rocking scene like this for Goldfinger. They've forgotten what they were fighting about.
My name is Pussy Galore.
Nervous studio executives consider changing the character's name to Kitty Galore. The risque name is never printed on the US trading cards aimed at youngsters.
It's very much tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? I mean, if you're so po-faced that you have to take that seriously, well, bad luck. But I mean, it was very funny in the States. I was quite shocked that they were shocked. I was rather taken aback. So I used to quite deliberately say, "Oh, you mean pussy?" And he used to die and cut and all that sort of thing, you know.
I believe this is yours.
Hawaiian wrestler Harold Sakata makes his screen debut as Oddjob.
Harold Sakata, the 284-pound wrestling sensation from Hawaii, is heading for a new career. If he passes his screen test, he'll play a murderous muscle man in the new James Bond movie thriller, Goldfinger. And what a screen test it is. Those were 4 blocks of walnut that can support an elephant. Now for footsies. This can really fracture you. Harold's toes hang together, the part is his. Here's Sakata's first scene in Goldfinger. He's mixing it up with Sean Connery, who stars as Special Agent James Bond in the United Artists adventure film. The setting is the U.S. Treasury's gold vault at Fort Knox. It looks like the first round goes to Sakata. With it goes the admiration of youngsters visiting the set.
No matter how strong a man is, a cough can still get the upper hand. But fortunately, there's Vicks Formula 44, the extra strength cough mixture. Effective as codeine, but not narcotic. Extra strength to help control a cough before it goes on a rampage.
Influential British graphic artist Robert Brownjohn, designer of the stunning main title sequence of the film, takes charge, designing the advertising campaign. Brownjohn revises images of Connery which were originally created for Dr. No. Actress Margaret Nolan models for the poster artwork, and also the Golden Girl in the main credit sequence. Robert Brownjohn devises several other striking images for use on the film's final one-sheet and British quad posters. Collectors take note, there is an alternate version of the British poster worth over $1,500, if you can find it. Literally worth its weight in gold. The studio retouches sexy publicity photos before release to the press. As if Golden Girls and Pussy Galore are not exotic enough, Goldfinger also gives Tom Carlyle and his marketing team a publicist's dream, the now famous Aston Martin DB5.
Well, we have an Aston Martin car that has a few sort of idiosyncrasies which a potential enemy would find interesting. And there's also a pilot's ejector seat for the fellow traveller, which puts them out through the roof at somewhat hurried speed. And a couple of other little things, but it's much better one doesn't disclose them because they lose their flavour.
Although the success of Goldfinger makes Sean Connery a household name, the Aston Martin DB5 quickly speeds past him into the record books. No other vehicle in the history of entertainment so captivates the public mind. Still popular at auto shows, Bond's lethal vehicle spawns an entire cottage industry of products. In 1965, Corgi Toys releases their first replica of the car, and it sells a phenomenal 2 million units worldwide.
Corgi made a golden car, the golden Bond car, which had the ejector seat and all the gadgets, everything worked. They made a miniature Aston Martin for Prince Charles. I remember seeing photographs of it. It was a complete, absolute replica of the Bond car.
Various versions of the car are produced over the next 30 years. Corgi coats this 1994 edition of the DB5 in 14-karat gold. Only 7,500 of these special anniversary cars are manufactured, and their value continues to soar. Any wonder that James Bond's Aston Martin DB5 earns the title the most famous car in the world? This is the Aston Martin DB5 used in the 1995 Bond thriller GoldenEye, in action at the same Pinewood studio locations used in Goldfinger. Of the 1,023 DB5s built, 2 are used during production of Goldfinger. Producers outfit another 2 with gadgets for publicity purposes. All 4 are now privately owned and valued in excess of $250,000 each. The DB5 gets the occasional critique from an eagle-eyed fan.
And you'd get a letter addressed to the director, Pinewood Studios, England. Dear sir, I saw Goldfinger. When James Bond in the Aston Martin leaves Switzerland, the back tires are Pirelli CX's XY, but when he arrives at the petrol station, they're Dunlop 402s. Yours sincerely, Roger Brown, age 9. I worried about this because, and then I came up with an answer, which I thought was quite cute. I wrote, Dear Roger, well done. You spotted one of our 6 deliberate mistakes, and if you can spot the other 5, you're invited to Pinewood to have lunch with James Bond. And I like to think that he and his friends went about 10 more times to see the picture.
But I think the most frightening experience I had with the car was that at Her Majesty's 40th anniversary, there was an enormous show put on at Earl's Court, and I had to drive it past the Queen. Well, I don't think this car had been driven for years, because in a sort of the practice run, it's kept stalling. And I thought, my God, I know what's going to happen. It's going to stall right in front of the Queen. Half the audience would expect me to get out and tinker with it and put it right.
Producers Broccoli and Saltzman make plans for an elaborate premiere in London on September the 17th. It will be a Bond bash like no other. The streets outside the Odeon jam with over 5,000 fans. In keeping with the lavish style of the film, everything is first class.
It was, I think, the most glamorous night of my life, I have to say. I mean, the crowds were so enormous that the glass went in at the cinema. I mean, they pushed the glass in. And one got a great hand as one came out and swept down the stairs. It was very, very glamorous. Harry always said that women came out of seeing a Bond film dreaming about Bond, and the men came out walking tall.
A British designer creates a special Goldfinger jewel, which Honor Blackman wears to the premiere and on a promotional tour of England. The $10,000 bauble becomes its own attraction.
And we got to the studio literally 5 minutes before I was due on. We were on directly after the news. And I had these 2 security men walking behind me, because I had this gold finger, you know. But as the countdown started, he asked me, the interviewer said, what would you like me to ask you? And I said, I don't give a damn what you ask me, you know. I like not to know. And then he suddenly said, Miss Blackman, what is it like being half male, half female? At which I absolutely broke up. And I had on a very low-cut dress, so I leaned forward and I said, which half did you have in mind for which?
Goldfinger breaks records in its premier British engagements, and an eager audience awaits the film's release in the United States. Golden Girl Shirley Eaton tours major American cities in advance of the movie's December the 21st premiere. Sneak preview screenings draw hordes of fans in Washington, D.C., Miami, New Orleans, and Los Angeles.
We had a sneak somewhere in Westwood, and that was the first time I'd seen the picture with an audience. And what I enjoyed thoroughly was sitting in front of me was a real know-it-all. I mean, he was a big kind of truck driver, and he got his wife and he got his mother-in-law, and he'd seen the obvious Bond movies. I mean, he knew all about Bond. And all the way through, he made commentaries and then leant back because he knew the answer. And then I fooled him time and again. And that was my pleasure. I mean, he was the guy I was really working for.
Simultaneously, the studio floods the airwaves with advanced radio spots promoting Goldfinger, even if Her Majesty's secret agents sound like they hail from the Borscht Belt.
Evening 006.
Evening 008.
What's new?
I'm fed up with 007, that's what's new. He's back in action and he's got the best assignment again. The Goldfinger case.
You think...
Stop. Look. He's gunning for trouble. 007. It spells... Bond.
Shocking.
He's the idol of every woman.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
The envy of every man. The nemesis of the treacherous Mr. Goldfinger. Goldfinger, a triumph in thrill-making cinema entertainment.
The man with the mind.
A three-time winner for Fleming's Secret Agent 007.
Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
Isn't it customary to grant the condemned man his last request?
You've asked for this.
Come and purr over Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore. The female who is all feline. Also starring Gert Frober as Goldfinger. International cheat. International menace.
Gentlemen! Goldfinger, why weren't we told the New York and the West Coast were in on this?
Goldfinger, I made a delivery. Where is my money?
And you owe me $1 million.
Goldfinger, the man with a finger in every pie. His goal, Fort Knox, the world's biggest bank. His enemy, 007, the world's wiliest, toughest gentleman agent with a license to kill. 007, it spells Bond. James Bond, mixing business with girls and thrills. Girls and fun. Girls and danger. The hotter the danger, the cooler he takes it.
I think you've made your point, Goldfinger. Thank you for the demonstration.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
The marketing department at United Artists becomes so excited they even take publicity photos of Vincent Sardi's dinner to plan the American premiere. Bond's DB5 arrives on the SS France, drawing all sorts of admirers. The evening of December the 21st, 1964, becomes the event of the season for New York society, with crowds surging around the elegant DeMille Theatre. After the screening, local celebrities wine and dine in the grand ballroom of the famous Astor Hotel.
Goldfinger proved to be the turning point in James Bond films. It packed audiences worldwide, from England to Japan and certainly in the United States.
By the time of the US premiere, Bond frenzy grips the world. Goldfinger crosses all boundaries of sex and age. Everyone wants to be among the first to see the action-packed return of 007. Goldfinger smashes records in New York and at box offices around the world, from Tokyo to Munich, from Rome to Taiwan, from Mexico City to Mobile, Alabama. Goldfinger is everywhere. Goldfinger earns back its $3 million production costs in only 2 weeks, an incredible achievement considering it's playing at only 64 theaters in 41 key American cities. No wonder it achieves status in the Guinness Book of World Records as the fastest grossing film of all time.
At the time of the release of Goldfinger, there were the obvious movie tie-ins, the book, the album,
The film also launches the James Bond merchandising boom. These British trading cards mark the first official James Bond product, along with these James Bond 007 dress shoes. The box alone is now worth $400.
Around about the time when Goldfinger was first released in 1964, we suddenly started to see a lot of spoofs and parodies of Bond and spies start to hit the screen. So Bond was responsible for starting off everybody else jumping on the Bond wagon. And whilst all these other films are quite entertaining in their way, none of them match the class, style and sophistication of a Bond film. Everybody tries to copy it, nobody's equalled it. Not then and not now.
James Bond parodies appeared all over. Another Goldfinger success is the chart-topping title track by composer John Barry.
Goldfinger!
Although Shirley Bassey's soaring rendition of the song is the one audiences remember, the hit had its origins with this demo version by co-lyricist Anthony Newley.
Such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin. Don't go in. Golden words he will pour in your ear,
But his lies can't disguise what you feel.
The Goldfinger soundtrack, which went gold, naturally, causes a case of battling billboards with the producers of the Sherlock Holmes musical Baker Street. The success of the film fuels interest in the novel all over again. One wonders if Ian Fleming had any notion that his creation would not only endure, but increase in popularity for over 4 decades. Goldfinger is so popular that it is successfully reissued many times in combination with other Bond films. The first reissue is this 1966 double bill with Dr. No.
Miss Honey and Miss Galore have James Bond back for more. And here he comes, the one, the only 007. And he's got a date with his 2 deadliest enemies, Goldfinger and Dr. No. It's Sean Connery as James Bond, at his best, battling 2 of his worst enemies. They try to bomb him and charm him, mug him, and drug him.
Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
They try to chop him and drop him, belt him and melt him.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Walls crumble in his path. Women tumble in his arms. Nothing stands in his way.
Shocking.
There is only one James Bond. And if you liked him back to back, you'll love him face to face with his 2 deadliest enemies.
Goldfinger!
And Dr. No.
Goldfinger. Get ready, Mr. Bond. Dr. No and I are getting another shot at 007 together.
To celebrate Goldfinger's 30th anniversary, fans from around the country gather for a re-premiere at the prestigious Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Sponsored by Creation Entertainment, the event has many alumni from the Bond films, including Goldfinger's editor and future Bond director Peter Hunt, and the man who designed many of the Aston Martin's amazing gadgets, special effects wizard John Steers. The next day, Creation Entertainment hosts a large convention which allows fans to enjoy a close-up view of the original DB5 gadget car. At London's Planet Hollywood, the cuisine is served amid a museum of original Bond props. Even Oddjob's lethal hat is here. More than 3 decades after its original premiere, Goldfinger remains one of the most memorable and popular films of all time.
This is no time to be rescued.
The Goldfinger phenomenon created its own style, humor, and sense of elegance. The film became an event, a conversation starter, and a show stopper. Only a handful of films retain their original charm and popularity over intervening decades, but Goldfinger continues to captivate viewers. For those who saw the film in 1964, Goldfinger made an indelible impression. On some, more than others.
As a boy in 1964, when I left Ireland, it was the first film I ever saw. It was magic. It was Goldfinger. It was unbelievable. It was a naked lady covered in gold paint. It was just sheer magic. And the man, odd job with the hat and everything like that. It was sheer sophistication. Life changed for me.